After my first attempt at this failed miserably, I'm doing it again, but I've written the equations out separately. Make sure everyone's happy with the vocabulary I'm using. Whenever we see a letter, for example E, Q, U, A, L or S, or X, which is what we usually use, that is an unknown. When I talk about an unknown, I'm talking about the letter. If we see 4x, the 4 is what's called a coefficient. Tells us how many x's we've got, tells us what we're multiplying our unknown by. If I've got 7x, take away 3, negative 3 is my constant. It is separate from 7x, and it doesn't matter what x equals, negative 3 will always be worth negative 3. That's why it's called constant. So I took these 6 equations and I wrote them down on this piece of paper, so I've got a bit more room to write things out. There are 2 methods to solve equations with brackets. I would always suggest expanding the brackets first, but all of these work with an easier trick, so I'm going to use the easier trick with you today, which is to divide by the number outside the brackets, what you could call it the coefficient of the bracket. So here my coefficient of the bracket is 3, so I need to do the inverse operation. I need to divide by 3, which tells me that E add 1 equals 5. I then remove the constant of 1 by doing the inverse of adding 1, which tells me that E equals 4. Again, I've got a coefficient of my bracket of 3, so I need to divide by that, giving me 2 take away 3 equals 3. You'll notice that here and here my brackets disappeared. That was because I no longer needed to separate the Q and the negative 3 from anything. We have constants on both sides, we don't like that, let's remove that constant. The inverse of negative 3 is positive 3, which means Q equals positive 6. Now with my last one, I'm not quite sure that why it says take away 7, it should be times by 7. So we need to divide by 7, giving me U take away 8 equals 8. Right, we see the constant here, and this is where most people will, not most people, sorry, that's a generalisation, some people will make the mistake of subtracting 8 from both sides. We must do the inverse. We need to add 8 to both sides. That gives me U equals 16. Okay, the next 3 have removed the multiplication sign, which is fair enough. We don't use multiplication signs in algebra. So the same method as before. A adds A, subtract 6 equals 4. So what have I written? Did it in my head? There we go. A bit ahead of myself there. So A take away 6 equals 3. Negative 6 is constant. A equals 3 add 6, which is 9. Let's divide by 2. Don't get ahead of yourself this time. 2L add 4 equals... I have got ahead of myself again, haven't I? My goodness. Just shows how easy it is when you're rushing. Don't rush. Okay. We've now got the constant of 4. 2L equals 20 take away 4, which is 16. We've still got another coefficient here. We're going to divide by 2 again, which tells us that L equals 8. Last equation in this series is 2 brackets 4s add 4 equals 80. First of all, we're going to divide by 2, which means that 4s add 4 equals 80 divided by 2 equals 40. Look at that, I did it right for a change. Now remove the constant. Sorry, that was unnecessarily loud. and finally divide by this coefficient. Now, the right hand side of this question basically wants you to write your own equation. I am thinking of a number. Choose any letter you wanted to. I'm going to use N because his name is Noah. When he subtracts 19 and multiplies the whole answer by 9, he gets 63. You see how that equation arose? We're going to do exactly what we've been doing before. That tells us that N subtract 19 is 7, which means to find Noah's number, we need to add 19 to 7, which tells us that Noah's number is 26. Well, it's on my page anyway. Again, more equations, but this time I am prepared after having messed up the last time. So I've got those written down on another sheet of paper. You'll notice that this one here has a line in the middle of the box. That means our answer is going to be a fraction. Just be aware of that. So I'm not going to do a huge amount of talking because we've all seen what happens when I try and talk and work at the same time. Important thing to be aware of here is that we can have negative and, as we saw, fractional answers to questions. Equations can have non-integer and even non-positive answers. This one here, think about that as being -1 times all of that. That's one way of thinking about it. Another way to think about it is just think about it as this made everything in there negative. Okay, so that's making everything in there negative. We need to make everything in there positive, which means we need to switch the signs at the sides. This is kind of the examples where I would definitely expand the brackets. So, -c add 4 equals 3. Can you see why that was an add? Because it was negative. Okay. Remove the constant of 4. -c equals -1. Well, if -c equals -1, what does positive c equal? Positive 1. I like to throw that one in every now and again. Don't let it catch you out. Now here, can we do 10 into 29? No, we can't. So what we're going to do here is again expand the brackets. -10s, take away 30, equals -29. The -29 is not affected by the bracket. Remove the constant. -10s equals +1. Now if -10s is +1, then +10s is -1. And what happens when we then divide -1 by 10? We end up with s equals -1/10, or you could say -0.1. And if you look here, it obviously wants it to be 0.1 because there's no fraction button. No fraction button, no fraction space. Moving on to the other three. Can we just divide this one straight away? Yes, we can. F take away 6 equals 2. Let's get rid of that constant by doing the inverse. F is 8. -2. Can we divide by -2? Of course we can. What is -2 divided by -2? Well, negative divided by a negative gives us a positive answer, and 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. So 2t add 7 is +1. We then continue as we normally would. I haven't left myself much space, which is daft. And we end up with t t equals negative 3. Very squished. My final equation, it's got a fraction in it. Don't let that be a problem. Just get rid of the fraction first. How do we get rid of a fraction? A fraction is a division. So how do we get rid of a division? We multiply. So let's multiply. So the numerator of the fraction is now the whole left-hand side. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 and 9, do they divide? No, they don't, so I can't use my divide method. I have to expand first. 20w add 10 equals 9. Got a constant going on over here. And then we've got the coefficient that we need to divide by. Minus 1/20th. And this time it does want a fraction, so that's good. 8, negative 3, and minus 1/20th. This doesn't look like an equation straight away, it looks like substitution. But substitution is really an equation where we've been given one of the values. Because equations can have as many unknowns as they want to. So we've been told that the f unknown, the Fahrenheit unknown, is negative 8. So let's just write that. 5/9 negative 8. Take 32 equals, let's see, degrees Celsius. Okay. That's completely wrong. I'm not doing the whole thing now. Right. Let's try again, shall we? It tells us that the Celsius amount is negative 8. So let's try that again, shall we? 5/9. I'm going to say small f. I don't like writing the big F. 32 equals negative 8. Right then. Now what I'm going to do is rewrite this slightly in the same style as this one was written. I'm going to turn it into a bracket on the top of a fraction and just a 9 on the bottom of a fraction. Those two mean exactly the same thing. And now I can treat it like I did this one here. That tells me that 5f, 5 brackets, f take 32 is the same as negative 72. Those don't divide, so I need to expand the brackets. 5f take away 160 is negative 72. Add on 160. 5f equals 88. And then finally we divide by 5. (88/5). However, it doesn't want it as 88/5. It wants it to the nearest degree. So we need a decimal answer. If you've got a calculator, good for you. If you haven't got a calculator, let's do some short division. How many 5s go into 8? 1, remainder 3. How many 5s go into 38? 7, remainder 3. How many 5s go into 30? 6, remainder nothing. 17.6. 17.6 is therefore negative 8. Oh, but it's nearest degree. Don't be daft. 18.